It seems to me more or less axiomatic that if they're high-fiving in the Kremlin and shouting for joy on Russian state television, whatever Trump and Vance thought they were up to, on some level, they're not serving American interests. I mean, I don't see how anyone looks at the this alignment with Russia when Russia and Putin himself have been explicit enemies of the United States for so long. I mean, Russia has, Putin and his surrogates on Russian television have explicitly threatened us with nuclear annihilation for our support of Ukraine. Right? I mean,
Right.
this is just these are not our friends. To leave aside everything else they've been doing to try to undermine American democracy. I mean, let's just dig into how is it possible that your friends and erstwhile friends in the Republican Party have lost sight of the fact that one, Putin is actually a dictator who kills his political opponents or jails and kills them, as well as journalists. He launched an actual war of aggression against Ukraine. Ukraine is a country that we convinced to give up its nukes. I mean, one unfortunate lesson of this whole episode is that no one can look at this and think it was a good idea to give up your nukes, because this is what happens to you. I mean, again, are most Republicans closeted and sane now, or have they actually taken the firmware upgrade of their brains offered by Trump and Vance? And I mean, what do you think Mark Rubio thinks is actually going on here?
Well, you know what Nietzsche said: to look into Mark Rubio's soul, he'll look back into you.
Yeah.
Be careful about that. Yeah, you asked this before, and I didn't really answer the question about like how many normie Republicans are left, right? Their numbers are shrinking for sure. I mean, just as a matter of just head counting, the number of Republicans in Congress who were there prior to 2017 has been shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, right? Because a lot of the normies, it's like I don't want to quote Yates, but like the best lacked all conviction and got the hell out of there and were replaced by the worst in a lot of cases. And so, there's a reason why my podcast is called The Remnant but I think there are still an enormous number or a significant number of Republicans, including Republican voters, right? Ukraine is still like, I looked at the numbers recently, like 60, 70% favorable views from Republican voters, while Russia is like 20%. Some of this is a manifestation of being way too online and only listening to your biggest fans, which is a form of corruption. But the problem is that while there are still significant numbers of normies, they lack courage. And they'll say, look, I have to pick my battles. I've talked to Republican senators who I think who agree with us very, broadly and actually narrowly on all of these sorts of issues when it comes to Ukraine and a lot of other things. But they're like, look, I'll lose a primary. There are only so many fights I can take. Some of them are legitimately, this gets underreported, but there are Republicans who are elected Republicans who are literally afraid for their personal safety.
Yeah.
With the Pete Hegseth nomination, Joni Ernst was one of the holdouts, and there's a lot of talk about how like what she was put through, the death threats and all of that, were one of the things that tipped her over. There are a lot of decent people who are friends of mine who left in part because they're like, why am I risking my family, like literally my family's lives, for a tenth of what I can make in the private sector?